Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. Apologize for our late start. We had a very robust closed session. Welcome to a regular meeting of the East Bay Region Park District Board of Directors. Today is 7/20/2021, and we are starting at 1:50 this afternoon. And pursuant to Governor Newsom's executive order number N2920, the Board of Directors and staff is participating in board meetings via phone and video conferencing. And Madam Secretary, can you tell everyone how they can listen in and view and also provide public comments? You're muted, young.
Yes, I saw that. Yes, President Rosario, people can email me at yolandaburialknight@yburial@ebparks.org. They can call and leave a message at 510-544-2016, or they can simply join the meeting, which is indicated on the agenda.
Great, thank you very much. And with that, we will begin. Can you take a roll call, please?
Yes, President Rosario. Director Lane?
Here.
Director Wieskamp? I don't think she's here yet. Director Eccles?
Here.
Director Coffey?
Here.
Director Waspy?
Here.
Director Corbett?
Here.
And President Rosario.
Here.
Executive team that is present would be General Manager Landreth. I have AGMs Auker, O'Connor, Johnson, District Council Carol Victor, AGM Kelchner, Government Relations Eric Fuller, AGM, who else am I missing? Chiobaro, I see you, and Deputy General Manager Dr. Alvarez. And thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And with that, I'm going to ask Director Corbett if you can lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America
and to the republic for which
it stands,
one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sunday. Thank you. And Director Waspy, you have an acknowledgement today?
Yes, thank you. I think we've pretty much gone around the horn, and the first time I did this, I recognized the Jalquin and Volvan tribes in my neck of the woods. And now I'd like to share with you something that I've read about all of the native peoples in our area. Ohlone, Bay Miwok, and Delta Yokuts peoples knew and understood the natural world with an intimacy unfathomable to society today. Their sacred narratives describe how the world and people were created at the dawn of time. Local native peoples thrived here for countless generations because they knew how to balance human needs with that of the land and all of its other inhabitants. They used specialized land management techniques like landscape burning to increase habitat diversity. Such methods increase the numbers of and improve the health of the plants and wildlife on which they relied. Their social, political, economic, religious, and material heritage is profound. Thank you.
Thank you. And then approval of the agenda. We're going to make a slight change in the agenda. We're going to move item number 4, General Manager's comments, have that up to right after consent to accommodate some time issues. So with that amendment, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Moved by Director Waspy. Is there a second?
Second.
Second with Director Eccles. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
President Rosario. Director Lane?
Here.
Director Eccles?
Here.
Director Coffey?
Aye.
Director Waspy?
Aye.
Director Corbett?
Aye.
Is Director Wieskamp here yet? Nope. And President Rosario?
Aye.
Okay. It is approved. The agenda is approved with the addition.
And do we have any public comments?
Yes, President Rosario, we do. We have one public comment, and that's from Kelly Abreu. Mr. Abreu, you have 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to say that my comments have to do with Ward 5, and it's very disappointing that my director is not here at this moment. The public holds our firefighters, the fire marshal, and fire inspectors in the highest regard for their professionalism, integrity, and honor. On the other side of the line, there is lawlessness, anarchy, and dishonor, which threaten the public when the fire safety rules aren't enforced. The state of California understands this. So the state doesn't leave children's safety in the hands of local fire departments. The state fire marshal relies on the office of the state architect to protect fire and life safety at our most critically important facilities. The state architect oversees design and construction of K-12 schools and community colleges, making sure they comply with all the fire and life safety codes. When the city of Oakland misclassified the ghost ship as a non-habitable warehouse, they disgraced the fire profession. That fire killed dozens. Now the Alameda County Fire Department could betray the public's trust again at an event center adjoining Vargas Plateau Regional Park. ACFD has misclassified a banquet hall with an occupancy of 400. It has elegant chandeliers, but they call it an agricultural barn. The banquet hall doesn't have any fire sprinklers, which are required by the Health and Safety Code. It doesn't have exit signs on the emergency exits. The fire department signed off on non-existent sprinklers. These are your brothers and sisters. So we're asking the fire chief here at the Park District and the members of this board with links to the Alameda County Fire Advisory Commission to stand with your colleagues who are trying to do the right thing. Help them to stand against the political pressures. ACFD is risking people's lives because they aren't enforcing the fire and life safety codes. Advise ACFD to put fire safety above politics. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. We'll have staff look into that. Thank you. No other public comments?
No, President Rosario.
Okay, thank you. Now move to item C, business before the board, consent calendar. Any unresolved questions?
The question that you had on item C, was that responded to?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I do not have any other questions in advance. Any
Okay.
board members have?
Any other board members have?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay, great.
I move we adopt the consent calendar.
Second,
Great, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Roll call, please.
Yes, President Rosario. Director Lane,
Aye.
Director Wieskamp,
Aye.
Director Eccles.
Aye.
Director Coffey.
Aye.
Director Waspi,
Aye.
Director Corbett,
aye.
and President Rosario.
Aye.
The agenda is unanimously approved.
Appreciate all the work on the consent calendar by staff. Thank you so much. And then as we advertised, we are going to move up item number 4, General Manager's comment, and we welcome Deputy General Manager Ana Alvarez.
Thank you so much, Director Rosario, board members. Let me put up my screen here. Let me start sharing my screen. Let's see. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
It's not a pretty picture.
No, it's not, but it certainly tells a story. So thank you so much, President Rosario. Good afternoon, board members, colleagues, and members of the public. Deputy General Manager, Dr. Ana Alvarez. I appreciate you moving this item on the agenda um, since I have a time commitment, but I will be leading today's presentation on the Park District's drought response, and I'm joined by staff representing the various divisions who are available to answer any questions that you may have. As part of the presentation, I will touch on the principles that guide our response, describing drought conditions that we are currently experiencing and their impacts on regional parklands and ecological features, such as the Vasco Caves rock pool that you see here on your right for Longhorn Fairy shrimp that dried up very, very early this year. I will be also touching on key elements that frame our actions, including how our organizational values of resiliency and transparency come to life as we conduct this work, which is defined by goals and objectives that describe our intentionality in building climate change resiliency. As you will see, we do have a good jump start on this work and have prioritized next steps that comprise an immediate action plan. I do want to share with you that 3 key principles have been identified to guide the Park District's drought response. Every action that may be proposed or implemented will be in response to or in adherence to the board's climate change policy. We commit to building resiliency from the impacts from drought and wildfires while embracing sustainable practices in protecting and preserving the East Bay's natural infrastructure that is found across our 75 regional parks through water conservation, water loss prevention practices, and adaptive land management, so that the public lands that we steward will be climate friendly, climate ready, and certainly climate smart. As we continue to experience climate change and at the front lines of our work, we will build enhanced capacity at various levels, including professional development on the latest best practices on sustainable water management and the integration of new technologies. All of this while focusing on succession planning to ensure that the Park District will have a deep bench to steward public lands in the future amidst extreme weather events that come with a changing climate. The last guiding principle speaks to the commitment to bring to life the Park District's values as we do this work in responding to the change conditions from the drought that we're experiencing. I say change conditions because the lands east of the San Francisco Bay have evolved in a Mediterranean climate with dry summers and mild, wet winters. In the last 2 years, we have experienced very little precipitation, and as of July the 13th, last week, approximately 33% of California had reached exceptional drought conditions, which includes Contra Costa and most of Alameda County. Exceptional drought is the highest intensity known to scientists today. It's shown here on the intensity scale, which ranges from a drought with no intensity, meaning a normal dry season in California, to abnormally dry, all the way to an exceptional drought intensity, which is what we're experiencing today. These extreme or exceptional drought conditions have a direct impact to the natural infrastructure found on our lands. For instance, grazing lands are rapidly becoming inadequate, which requires to pull cattle earlier, and bringing them back is becoming very difficult. The Park District has experienced firsthand in the past expanded fire seasons. And this year, as you know, we're experiencing yet another unprecedented set of wildfires exacerbated by the exceptional drought conditions, which have already affected 5 regional parks in both counties. So forest mortality with the drought is high, even with even more stressed trees, which are fast becoming susceptible to disease. You also see that wetlands and ponds have dried up, as you can see on the right side of this picture. This was an important pond to supporting grazing at Del Valle Regional Park. The pond dried up back in October of last year because, again, we experienced very little precipitation. And we have also observed the acceleration of algae blooms and the appearance of cyanobacteria in new bodies of water here at the district. The exceptional drought conditions will have an impact to the operation of parks with anticipated water use reduction mandates from water purveyors, which have resulted in the past with loss of recreational amenities like swimming and fishing. Right now, we're seeing damaged lake docks, as illustrated on the picture on your left. This picture was taken last week at Lake Chabot, and you can see that the dock has been completely damaged and is not usable at this time. It's closed off. We're also seeing a fast increase of invasive species populations like stinkwort, which also diminishes recreational amenities. Park operations and the fuels group in the fire department are contending with increases in fuel vegetation loads from desiccated vegetation. And there is one small benefit that I wanted to bring to your attention that comes with an exceptional drought, which is that we no longer have to drain the ponds that are populated by bullfrogs. So that you have one there, Director Corbett, one positive thing. So the Park District will be managing these impacts through a planned approach that calls for a commitment to a path forward as described by the guiding principles, convening an interdisciplinary team that will serve as the Park District's brain trust on this matter with the participation of staff members across the Park District. The team will collaborate to carry out planning efforts, introducing new practices, and formulating policy recommendations on 4 sectors identified here, including water conservation, water loss prevention, water infrastructure, and monitoring and mitigating of ecological impacts from these exceptional drought conditions, so that we are not stunned when an entire lake disappears, as is in the case of the main lake at Doolan Canyon, as seen on the picture on the right, which was taken back in May of this year. As I mentioned before, to bring the best of ourselves in responding to the drought, we will need to lean into our organizational values and with a keen focus on the value of building resiliency by creatively adapting to change and addressing the challenges with empathy, perspective, and determination. And I say determination to carry out the responsibility to steward these lands under the most extreme conditions, to honor the land and the wildlife that inhabits these lands, including those that are most impacted, like the California tiger salamanders that you see on the picture in the middle here, which were taken at Morgan Territory by Mark Gary, who has been monitoring these ponds. So the picture that you see here was taken back in April of 2021. Now you see the picture in July in 2021, when we saw 53 California tiger salamanders stranded in a desiccated pond. And Mark Gary has been monitoring these ponds for the last 37 years on behalf of the Park District. The drought response team has identified a planned approach in responding to the drought with 6 goals and approximately 30 objectives shown here. I will be briefly highlighting some of these objectives and do not plan to review the entire list in the interest of time, but also note that as we embark on this work, some of these objectives may change since again, we are adapting to the conditions that we're observing and monitoring. So under water conservation, staff will be developing a water conservation plan that will speak to the changes in irrigated landscape practices, as well as describing the actions taken to meet any water reduction mandates. And this is an important endeavor as this will serve as our public-facing document in understanding the operational impacts. Under water infrastructure, I will have to highlight the opportunity given the mid-year appropriations from the board. So thank you so much for that allocation to improve water infrastructure for cattle. We will be assessing and prioritizing the development of water sources for cattle in coordination with the grazing tenants, the Natural Resource Conservation Service, or the NRCS, as well as park operations and stewardship staff. In the past, stewardship staff has rehabilitated some of these water sources, and now we're taking an entire program to look at all of our water infrastructure for livestock in the entire district. And under advancing the science, I really would like to showcase that the Park District will be coordinating research projects on drought stress on vegetation. We will be conducting climate modeling to prioritize pond restoration projects, as well as advance our partnership with the UC Berkeley's Rosser College of Natural Resources on soil moisture retention. And again, some of these pieces the district has done on a case-by-case basis, like the pond restorations. And now we're taking and developing an entire program as we embark on this project for many years to come. Under engagement, I would like to highlight that we anticipate that our government affairs team will be engaging with our legislators to advocate on potential emergency conditions that this extreme drought may bring as it advances. It may be that the drought will be with us for the next 2 years, 4 years, or even 8 years, as it was in the last drought. Also, our public affairs team will be leading a public education campaign to keep our park visitors engaged as we respond to these changed conditions. And in terms of engagement, you will see that there's many ways in which staff will be coming back to the board to keep you informed and engaged through the different subcommittees, including the board executive committee, where Director Corbett and Director Rosario have already asked for an update on our climate resiliency and the climate change programs. We certainly anticipate that the water conservation and water loss prevention will be brought forward to the board operating committee, and certainly all of the ecological impacts and ecological work will be heard through the Natural and Cultural Resources Committee. And certainly we will keep, we plan to address community engagement based on a project by project, depending on the level of work that we need to do in restoring the ponds or bringing in additional water infrastructure. We do have a jumpstart, which is very good news. The Park District has had to closely monitor water use and adapt over the last 15 years due to 2 significant droughts over that duration. The first drought was in 2007, and it lasted a year, and which prepared the Park District for the second drought, which lasted 6 years, from 2011 to 2017. Each was different, and methods learned from both will help to develop and improve on the current strategy to adapt to the changed conditions. I would also like to mention that in the Jumpstart, in the last 3 years, our frontline staff, through the climate change, the Frontline Climate Change Mini Grant Program, we have had 7 different projects that speak to climate resiliency from drought. And these projects came in for Tilden Regional Park, the Botanical Garden, Point Pinole, and Contra Loma. And I have a picture here on your left that speaks to the work that was done through this grant program at the request of the Botanical Garden director. These are water storage containers that tap directly into the well at the Tilden Botanical Garden, so that we can store the vegetation and the plant material there, which is a very important collection by the district. And also in the Jumpstart, in the last 5 years, we have had several water conservation projects pertaining to turf renovation projects, and that's creating water efficient and drought tolerant lawn areas and native gardens at several of our regional parks, including Crown Beach, Kennedy Grove, Coyote Hills, Shadow Cliffs, and of course, the development of the lawn area at Dumbarton Quarry on the Bay Campground. I would like to also mention that we do have an immediate action plan, meaning what we're going to be doing in the next 6 months, which is driven really by our budget through the allocation that the board has made for this year's operating budget. There are approximately $3.58 million that have been allocated specifically to the Park District drought response. So in the next 6 months, we will be launching the livestock water infrastructure program that I spoke to you about. We will also plan to replace the Briones water pipeline and initiate the irrigation systems program. And that's all under the water infrastructure goal. The irrigation systems program really speaks to understanding our overall irrigation systems throughout the entire Park District and bringing commonality in terms of the technology so that we're all working under the same technology and that we're able to manage those systems. And in addition to that, on the water conservation, we will continue by launching the turf renovation program. While we have completed 5 turf renovation projects in the last 5 years, we would like to do an overall assessment of all of the turf in the Park District and prioritize what are the most critical areas that we can rehabilitate or renovate so that we can gain the fastest water. We can save the largest amount of water in the fastest way. And we plan to launch by the end of this year the education and training program on water management for all of our operations staff, which is a new endeavor here. And also we plan to accelerate what's already in place, which is very critical as well, which is understanding or modeling, doing some climate modeling for our ponds in terms of understanding the hydro periods of those ponds so that we can start prioritizing again, where is the opportunity, where do the opportunities lie to effect the most change so that we can do right by the land. And we would like to accelerate through the stewardship department and the fire department, the fine scale vegetation monitoring program that I understand the staff has already applied through CAL FIRE for a grant of about $800,000 so that we can begin that work. And certainly to accelerate the work that was already in place for the last, I would say the last 3 to 5 years on our blue-green algae. We do have some remediation methods and we need to go back and take a look with the accelerated blooms as a result of the drought. What else can we do to do the work? And I'd like to bring your attention to the pictures here because this is Quarry Lakes last week. And while we knew that there were algae blooms there, it just continues to grow very fast. And then here's Shadow Cliffs in last week when the water has receded so much that we've lost the recreational amenity in terms of the fishing dock that leads to the water. It's a lot to take in and we anticipate to come back. I do want to, if you have any questions, but I would like to thank the folks that are working at the front lines as they're experiencing these extreme climate conditions. And we do have Allison Rove, a rangeland specialist, who has been with us for the last 2 years, as well as Tamin Lim, the ecologist, who are working with Dina Robertson, who's also a relatively new member of the Park District in understanding all the ecological impacts with Matt Grohl as the Chief of Stewardship. And certainly Jim O'Connor, the AGM of Operations, and Steve Castile, as they will be shepherding with Robert Kennedy additional water conservation and water loss prevention, as well as all the other folks that you see here that have a very critical role in our ability to respond to these changed conditions. And with that, that concludes my presentation. Director Rosario, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Questions from the board? Director Corbett and then Director Lane.
Well, thank you very much for providing this far-reaching reality check for what we'll be confronting so that along with all of the great work of our staff, we can address these issues. But it is a little scary. But being able to plan ahead is always good and always important. So I do have a question. I was wondering, obviously you showed some photos that show how some wildlife has been impacted, like the salamanders, for example, in the pools. Will we also be collecting information on how it may impact larger animals? Because I'm thinking as we build the infrastructure to help the cattle that are doing the very important grazing from fire prevention, how does that impact mountain lions and deer and other those type of animals that may then approach our irrigation ponds because other areas they're used to relying on are dried up, and how that might impact the movement of that kind of wildlife.
Yes, thank you, Director Corbett. Well, that's not part of the immediate action plan. We are thinking and we are already monitoring what we call charismatic indicator species, like the bald eagles, like the California squirrels, that those species, we'll be monitoring them as part of the climate, as part of the health ecological assessment under the stewardship department. And those species that I just mentioned, they indicate the overall health of our wildlife in these lands. So I know that Becky Tun and Matt Grau will continue with that work, and we will be able to link that work as if the drought goes further than 4 or 6 years. So that will inform additional impacts from the drought.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Director Lane?
Yes, I was interested in your grazing comments. So are the ranchers pulling cattle off lots earlier than they have in the past? I haven't heard anybody talking about that.
Yes, I'm going to ask Matt if he can please join and he can speak to what's happening actually in our grazing lands right now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Matt Grawl, Chief of Stewardship. Thank you for the presentation, Dr. Alvarez, and Director Lane, your question. Yes, so this year we did have to notify our tenants, and I believe it was late April, early May, through our newsletter, but also just noticing that they need to make plans. And so for most of our seasonal cow-calf operations, and many of those tenants removed their cattle in early May because we'd already run out of forage in those areas. And in some of the other areas where we have more cow-calf operations or more forage remaining, and we have more ability to move cattle to other areas, we've been able to keep some cattle on the land, but in many cases we've had to remove them early and much earlier than normal this year, just because of the lack of forage, lack of vegetation for them to eat.
And are the water ponds drying up too? So
Yes.
yeah, I can't see how that would not affect a whole variety of wildlife. You know, that Director Corbett brought up, because I know they use those ponds.
Right. And so, yeah, that's exactly what we're looking at. Something we've been aware of. We've been working on, a few ponds a year. We've got a number slated for restoration next year. And they take a couple years to plan. But I think what we're looking at now is more how can we expand the program? But in these areas where the ponds are drying up sooner than they should, is it because of siltation? Is that also a factor? Is there something we can do to expand the capacity so it can just hold water longer into the year? So we're looking at that, and then also a number of projects to spread water out on the land. So when the cattle are present, we can get them spread out to other areas. So we'll be looking to expand some of our spring systems and our wells, so we can then have water better distributed, so the cattle will move throughout the areas better.
Thank you, Matt. And then I would add that as we're bringing in additional infrastructure for water to the livestock, we are also thinking about multiple benefits. So other creatures that can access the water. So there's new models and new designs to the water. Can't pronounce it, Matt. Water troughs.
Yeah, water troughs. Yeah.
Thank you. That allow for the little critters to be able to access the water.
Is there a possibility, can you use recycled water or reclaimed water for animals?
No, we can't use reclaimed water for livestock, but I mean, it can be used for vegetation, and for areas where we need to maintain vegetation, but not necessarily for livestock watering, no.
Yeah, I know Central Sanitary District, they were providing free water for residents of parts of Contra Costa County during, I think, the last couple of years, because they reclaim the water and the residents are able to use it for their landscape. Director Wieskamp.
Recycled water, I know we have it at Shadow Cliffs. Should we be talking to other agencies about the use wherever it's logical and safe? It just strikes me that it is water going out to the ocean, and if there's some way we can do it safely, we ought to talk to all the other agencies because everybody's going to be in the same boat, basically. And
Mhm.
and the other thing is a study that was done by two, I think it's Manteca and Santa Cruz professors on using the state aqueduct for solar because it saves 85% of the water, and that water is helping lots of communities. I think wherever there's a chance we can put together projects that make sense, that will save water. Face it, it's not coming down from the sky. So what there we ought to make the best use of. So wherever we can, but I appreciate the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Wiskamp.
Any other questions? I have a couple more, or actually they're just comments really. Hopefully we're also including in our strategies that that we try to conserve when it does rain, that we're able to collect that water
Right.
and store them in tanks. I know I did that when I was at Redwood in 2007. Dennis remembers I used to go to him to steal any empty tanks that he had. And so, you know, I was able to keep alive vegetation in restoration areas for, you know, for the remainder of that drought. But that's an incredible source of water. It's something we should avail ourselves to. And that's also water you might be able to use to for animal troughs.
Sure.
So yeah, anything we can do to extend our water, collect water. I'm happy to hear that we're thinking ahead. I think at some point, if this drought continues, we'll probably have to have some kind of a moratorium on any new development of lawns in our new parks. So yes, so this is very timely, and I'm glad we're responding. Director Waspy.
Yeah, Dee, thank you. Since we're reminiscing, I'm hoping there's lots of things we can do immediately, and I hope, and we've even done these in the past. I mean, it's a small deal, but it's very constructive. Waterless urinals, the CXT restrooms. There's always this want and desire to hook them up to a city sewer and then get running flushable toilets. Well, that in some cases that doesn't make sense anymore, and I don't think the expectation of park users is to have full flushable toilets where you can wash your hands and do everything. It would be nice, but I think that's a convenience we really need to revisit. And speaking of reminiscent, Dee, do you remember there was a drought in God knows when? It was a long time ago, but we were both working at Redwood, and our boss would tell us to read the meters every day. And so we'd go up and read the meter every day, and we couldn't find the leak, and we'd recheck water fountains and recheck drinking fountains. Never knew what was going on until a park ranger who had worked at the park long before said, "Hey, you got to meet this guy named Malcolm Margolin." I hope you all remember Malcolm. Well, Malcolm came to the park and he said, "Oh yeah, I forgot. When I had a crew here and I was working at Redwood Park, I had this crew. We dug a little pond and I tapped into the water line and I just turned on the water." And then he retired and went away. For years, water was running into his pond that he would observe wildlife and write his books about. So do not turn that one off. And so
Check everything.
I might add one more thing. Globally, when we went through this drought at Hard, whenever the last one was, Hayward Area Recreation Park District, and one of my colleagues said, if you look at it globally, at some point a strategy might be to have parks be the real green places. And so if you ask public to not ruin their lawns or let their lawns die, let all of their foliage die, maybe parks are the islands of where we need to have green places and really not just abandon all our green spaces and lawns. So just a thought.
Thank you for the comments. I appreciate them, Director Waspy and Director Rosario. And I have to do justice by AGM O'Connor, who's not here today. He's on vacation. But the operations is revisiting the the waterless urinals. They're also revisiting water efficiency methods that have been put into all of our buildings and facilities. And under the water loss prevention program, we're initiating an entire audit of all of our water accounts with our 9 water purveyor agencies, so that in fact we can understand our water use data, and to understand if somebody's tapping into our water, or if somebody might be stealing our water, which is, believe it or not, is at times not unusual in large park systems. So it's a big undertaking, and I appreciate the fact that operations is willing to do that, because when you think about 33 cities and 9 water purveyors, it's quite an undertaking. So we will be doing that in the next couple of years.
Thank you. Any other questions? Last chance. Thank you very much, Dr. Alvarez.
You're welcome.
President Rosario, we do have one public comment on this item.
Okay, great, thank you.
Kelly Abreu, please. You have 3 minutes, sir.
Okay, well, I hope that we don't use water shortages as an excuse to keep going with the temporary porta potties that have been in place temporarily for the last 6 years at some parks that I won't name. And then when it comes to the idea of recycled water, the major expense in that, of course, is very, very advanced sewage treatment plants. And as it turns out, one of the most advanced is right there in Pleasanton, has a very advanced sewage treatment plant that produces, some fairly high quality water already, and probably could be even higher quality if they put a little more money into it, not much. But the problem in Pleasanton is that the city council voted against recycled potable water. So that's a political problem, and you need to talk to your politicians in Pleasanton, talk about potable water recycling, and it's a very technical issue. And when it comes to these droughts, one point I would make, nobody is able to forecast these droughts. The state of California this last spring forecast a certain amount of 7 million acre feet of runoff coming into our rivers, and 700,000 acre feet disappeared, evaporated, vanished, and didn't show up, even though their models, they have very expensive, very scientific models based on 100 years of data for how much scientifically forecast water was supposed to show up. Their models failed. Same thing with the Santa Clara Water District. They forecast that when they shut down the Anderson Dam, they told everybody everything was going to be fine. They had a plan. That was 6 months ago. Now they're talking about a dire water emergency coming up maybe this year, maybe next year, pretty soon. What happened? They had a plan, everything was fine, and then all of a sudden they turned around and now it's a dire emergency, even though everything was fine 6 months ago. San Diego in 1991, there was a drought. They went from, in the space of 6 months, they went through 5 stages of drought, and then they invented a 6th stage of drought to cut water use even more. The ability to forecast droughts is non-existent in modern California scientific water management. The decline in forage quality means that water requirements for cattle will increase. All those cows that you think need a certain amount of water actually are going to need more water because you're feeding them worse grass and they're under more heat. And this drought that we're talking about today is a 19-year drought. It's been going on. It hasn't been going on for a year or 2 years. It's been going on really for 19 years. And if you look at the tree rings that all your biologists should know about, this is a mega drought that's the worst mega drought in the last 1,000 years that we're seeing around here right now. So this kind of drought events we need to understand what happens to ecosystems in drought. Ecosystems can be permanently and irreversibly transformed. And anyone who thinks that we can just maintain and all those pretty forests and all the redwood trees or whatever, because we're stewards of the environment and we're going to keep everything the way it was, hasn't seen a mega drought. We don't, things could be transformed in ways that we don't expect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We do not have any additional comments on this item.
Yolanda. That brings us to item number 2, Acquisition, Stewardship, and Development Division. And 2A is authorization to award a construction contract to Grade Tech Incorporated and amend a contract with Johnson Marigot Consulting Incorporated and transfer and appropriate funds and authorization for direct payments for permits and utilities and associated agreements for the developed Tyler Staging
Yay.
Area Project, Pleasanton Ridge Regional Park. Woo, got all that.
That was a lot.
Thank you. Lisa, is this yours?
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon, President Rosario, Board of Directors, Lisa Gorgon, Chief of Design and Construction. We're so excited to be here today, and I get the privilege to introduce this item. It really represents a collaborative effort across the district. So working with operations and grants and stewardship, planning, trails, and design and construction to secure funding, develop construction documents, and perhaps the most challenging was to secure the required environmental permits for this new staging area, public access and trails. And so I just wanted to specifically point this out, that it was very complex, and in part because this park is the home to endangered species and regional water bodies. Like so many of our parks are, but this one in particular, was pretty challenging. So just want to acknowledge the hard work that all the staff did who worked on this, a big lift. And with that context, pass it over to Toby, the project manager, who will give the presentation.
Good afternoon. Let me share my screen. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Toby, we can see your notes.
Okay. I'll share I will share the PDF version of it.
There we go.
Very good.
Yay.
And how about now? Let me put it into full screen view here. There we have it. Is that good?
Looks good.
All right, great. Well, thank you, Lisa, and good afternoon. Nice to see you all. Thank you, Board Chair Rosario, board members and General Manager Landreth, and members of the public. I'm very happy to be here today to talk to you about the development of our new Tyler Ranch staging area. I'm Toby Perry, project manager in the design and construction department. Like I said, I'm excited to be talking with you today because I started working on this project 5 years ago, right after I started working for the Park District, and we're now on the verge of construction. So this picture here before you was taken about a month and a half ago during our pre-bid walk. You can see that the hills of Pleasanton Ridge have already churned a golden brown, and here in the foreground is the location of the future staging area. So the action before you today is for authorization to award a construction contract to Grade Tech Inc., amend a contract with Johnson Marigold Consulting, and transfer and appropriate funds for the developed Tyler Staging Area project. The Pleasanton Ridge Regional Park is located to the west of Interstate 680, south of Interstate 580, and north of Niles Canyon. You can see here on the left is the regional park in this shade of green. We currently have 2 staging areas, Foothill Staging Area here to the south, and then Castle Ridge Staging Area here, which was completed in 2018. The new Tyler Staging Area will be here at the southern boundary of the regional park, adjacent to the community of Sunol. And then just a note here, to the north on the outskirts of the city of Pleasanton is the location for the future GARM staging area. So the approximately 1,400 acre parcel of land where the staging area will be constructed was first acquired in 2009 And then the land use plan for Pleasanton Ridge Regional Park was adopted in 2012. The land use plan identified Tyler Ranch as the location for a new staging area to provide pedestrian, equestrian, and bicycle access in the southern end of Pleasanton Ridge Regional Park. There is already a network of ranch roads that provide connections from the staging area to other existing trails in the park, but as part of this project, we've permitted several new trails that will both improve the access. Our trails planning team will manage construction of these new trails in-house, utilizing our roads and trails crew. So here on the right, you can see a rendering of the new staging area. The new staging area will have 78 parking spaces, which include 4 ADA spaces. It will also provide for equestrian staging with separate space for 4 trucks with trailers. Site furnishings will include a drinking fountain with jug filler, bike rack, and the district standard 3-panel signboard. There'll be a family picnic area and a vault restroom with 2 stalls. And we'll have a gated park entry and landscape plantings to both shade the parking lot and also to screen out views from the adjacent neighbors. The staging area will have security lighting, and per permit requirements, stormwater runoff will be collected in a shallow on-site retention basin. And then one more thing to note here, you can see, you've probably noticed it on the previous slides here, but the iconic old barn is not part of this project. However, there's potential to utilize this barn in a future project. So the Park District advertised this construction contract on May 29th with bids due at the end of June. The project was advertised in 13 plan rooms in addition to advertising in the Daily Pacific Builder and BP Express. The district, we received 10 bids with Grade Tech Inc. With an amount of $1,359,000 being the lowest responsive bidder. And in the bottom here, you'll notice that the engineer's estimate was $2.1 million. So Grade Tech's bid came in approximately 65% of that. As part of today's recommendation, we're also seeking approval to amend our contract with Johnson Marigo. We've had them working on the project since 2018. They're an environmental consulting company that we've hired to help us obtain all of our environmental permits for this project and the trails. And so now we're asking them to provide new services during construction of the staging area trails that include pre-construction surveys, biomonitoring, monthly and annual compliance reporting as required by the environmental permits. And then just to reiterate the budget information that's in your packet, as part of the actions today, we're seeking to transfer $225,000 from Measure WW Pleasanton Ridge into the project budget. And then these funds in combination with existing project funds that include grant funds from the Habitat Conservation Fund and Prop 68 should give us adequate funding to complete the project. Regarding what's next here, this summer after awarding the construction contract, we expect to get into construction by the beginning of September, and then construction will continue through the fall and winter, and we expect to complete and open the new staging area sometime in the spring of next year. So with that, again, the recommendation before you today, the general manager recommends that the board of directors authorize to award a construction contract with Grade Tech Inc., amend the contract with Johnson Marigo Consulting, and transfer and appropriate funds for the Tyler Ranch staging area. So yeah, thank you very much for your time, and we can answer any questions you may have.
Great, thank you. Questions from the board? Director Wieskamp, you must have some.
Actually, Lisa and Toby gave me a thrilling update last week. Don't we wish it would look like that right now, that last picture? Maybe it will by next spring. This is going to be so beneficial to a lot of people of a variety of trails, some of them more problematic for the average person. I think the equestrians are very grateful to have those 4 slots. And I think you'll get all members of the community. I think you'll have people coming from Fremont, Newark to try a different park with some challenges. And I think the local Pleasantonians will be thrilled. I was talking to the Pleasanton Ridge supervisor this week, and he said Castle Ridge is busy every day. Lots of people just love it. And we're so grateful that that was put in. All of the area is something that is enjoyed not just by Pleasanton and the Valley, but by others. But I think we'll get a lot more people from the Fremont, Newark area. So I know it was difficult, and I know those permits took a very long time. So thank you, staff, so much for being persistent and not just pushing the buttons, but just hanging in there and getting it done. The public's going to be very grateful. And thanks for the update the other day. It's made me smile all week. We'll be.
Director Lane.
Yeah, I'm really pleased to see this happening too. We've had Grade Tech do some other projects for us, right? So you feel like that bid is going to be accurate without a lot of change orders? Okay.
Yeah, they're currently working on Brickyard at McLaughlin East Shore. And then I think, Ren, you worked with them previously as well, right?
Yes, I have. Director Lane, we believe we got competitive pricing. As you could see in the picture from Toby's presentation, we had a lot of contractors show up for this.
Mm-hmm.
And so that I believe led to some of our pricing coming in competitively or lower. And we are hoping that, they'll deliver this for the cost that they've provided in their bid.
Okay, I thought it was interesting that we had that many bids, because sometimes we don't have that many. So
yeah, we were pleased with the turnout that we had this go around, and we were surprised as well about the turnout that we had. And for the record, I'm Ren Bates, Capital Program Manager. I neglected to say that at the beginning of my response.
yeah, I ran. So we adopted the land use plan in 2012. For some reason, I was thinking that we might have a small playground as part of this, since we had so many parking spaces. That wasn't the case then, because you've seen the land use plan more recently than I, for sure.
Maybe part of the next phase.
Yeah, so
how
I think
how many picnic tables do we have in there? Do we have enough for a group picnic?
I'm going to defer that part to
Yeah.
Toby.
So there's two picnic tables planned for this site there. And you might have been thinking about the GARM staging area for the play structure. That was one of the contemplated amenities for the GARMs, but it was never part of the plan for Tyler.
Okay, thank you. Certainly could be the case. So are we talking and doing the trails about wide trails and multi-use trails? What are the user expectations? Besides, I know there'll be equestrians and bikers for sure. They want to go straight up. Right.
Do you want me to? I can feel that in that there is going to be a combination of those. There are single track trails being planned for this and constructed, but there also isn't a wide network of existing ranch roads that will provide good access also for the equestrians and the bikers, and it is all anticipated to be mixed use. But the intention is to create a variety of user experiences there in the park.
Okay, on the narrow trails, we're expecting that they would be restricted to horses and walkers?
Yeah, I'm going to defer. I see Sean popping on, so I think he's the most.
Yeah, it's just, you know, it's an issue that everyone's talking about. So I'd like to know about that for Tyler.
Absolutely. Director Lane, thank you. Sean Dugan, Trails Program Manager. The new trails are proposed to be constructed by our small trails crew with Rosen Trails, as well as a Swaco dozer, a combination of handwork and machine work, which will result in a 6-foot wide, narrow trail being constructed at the Tyler Ranch Loop Trail near the staging area for an experience from the staging area. And then higher up will be the, oh, help me, Toby, the Pack Rat Trail, which is, they're both proposed as multi-use, and they'll be about 6 foot wide once completed.
Okay. And then any trails that are more narrow than that? Or they're all going to be that same?
The two trails that we have so far, again, they start out that wide and then they you know, cure over time. So the two that we have in the permit package in Tyler right now are proposed to be the 6 foot wide to start, and then over time they'll narrow. We don't have any included in this current go round for any narrower, such as a hiker only trail, but we are already preparing the next phase of the permitting package, which will include more trails in Pleasanton Ridge. And we want to propose a trail that connects Tyler to Pleasanton Ridge, which was the intent of the land use plan. But that will be in the next permitting package. And as Lisa mentioned at the beginning of this, the permitting agencies and how they were not coordinating and the issues that we faced here, we wanted to get some trails in there so that the staging area could be used and accessed. The park could be accessed from the staging area, but we are doing this in a more phased approach. So I'm happy to discuss what you might have in mind as we move forward. I do believe there is quite a variety of types of trail proposed in the Pleasanton land use plan. So we will be looking to construct a little bit of each type as we move forward.
Okay, thank you.
I think it would be really good for the whole board to maybe review the trails that we're planning throughout Pleasanton Ridge at some future day. Just sort of get it back in mind again, because it has been a while since you've seen it. I know in talking to Wayne, they're still having a lot of problems with bootleg trails. And I don't know what we can do about that, but that's something that maybe we need to discuss through. I don't know if that's throughout the whole district or if it's just such a major problem at Pleasanton Ridge.
Pretty much everywhere.
I'm going to just respond and say that it is similar to issues we're having in multiple other parks. But as you recall, the biking community was very, very involved and vocal in the development of this land use plan, and what has resulted is a land use plan that's trying to accommodate that use. I should mention too, Toby reminded me that there are 3 other trails permitted as a part of this go around. There's a trail called the proposed trail called the Mariposa Trail. There's the Philip Schultz Trail, which we've received a large chunk of money from the Philip Schultz Foundation, which we intend to build first, since that one's been on the books, as well as the Tejon Falls Trail, which will provide access from Garm's staging area once that's completed. And so those 3 are permitted as a part of this package as well.
I think it'd be great if Sean got a chance to come back to us soon and show us this whole combination of trails, refresh our mind whenever it's appropriate.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions? Dennis.
Thank you. Toby, thanks for the great report, and I look forward to this opening up. I was wondering, and I appreciate, so the parking lot is going to be compacted gravel, right? Great. I think that helps out a lot. And so, but it does say that some of it will be partially paved. Is there a percentage? Do you know the percentage that's going to be paved?
I would say maybe a third of it paved. The main access road into it, and then where there's ADA parking needs to be paved. But certainly the bulk of where the public will, all of where the public will park, with the exception of the ADA, including where all the equestrians are going to park, is all going to be gravel.
Great. And so the stormwater treatment areas, meaning you're going to have to do something for that paved area, right?
Yeah, the paved area, as well as where the gravel is. It's all going to drain to the same location.
And so I'm being naive, but I'm also thinking of Dr. Alvarez's report. Is there any way, I mean, is it configured? I didn't look at it on the map of how you could, I mean, is it going to be a bioswale, I assume you're referring to treat the water?
Yeah, it basically will all drain to one basin where it will settle.
Okay. Yeah, okay, great. I guess, yeah, later I'll talk to you later about that. But so in the restrooms or vault restrooms, that means waterless vault restrooms?
Mm-hmm.
Great. And great, I look forward to it. Thank you very much.
Lisa.
Yeah, I just want to close and thank the board for your support and just highlight again, as Dr. Alvarez was mentioning, a lot of these efforts about water conservation, resiliency are underway. And so as part of the design review for this, while Toby mentioned that it had been going on a long time, recognizing my sort of limited tenure here at the district, I have had the sort of the nice opportunity to see the collaboration to discuss the issues, Dennis, Director Wasby, that you just mentioned about water conservation, about surfacing, about utilities, and how all these sort of goals and values of the district get embodied in a design like this. So I think we look forward to review the design further at a later date, but you know, we review these on a regular basis, so we sort of know them, but your comments are helpful for us as we come to the board again with updated development projects to kind of to point out how they relate to these overarching goals of the district as we respond to climate change.
Thank you. So if there's no other questions, a motion is in order.
It's a pleasure. I would like to give authorization to award a construction contract to Grade Tech Incorporated and amend a contract with Johnson Margo Consulting Incorporated and transfer and appropriate funds and authorization for direct payments for permits and utilities and associated agreements for the development of tighter staging area project, Pleasanton Ridge Regional Park.
Is there a second? We have a second from Director Wasby. Yolanda, roll call vote, please.
Vice President Rosario. Director Lane?
Yes. Yes.
Director Wieskamp?
Definite yes.
Director Eccles?
Aye.
Director Coffey?
Aye.
Director Wasby?
Aye.
Director Corbett?
You had to leave.
Okay, and President Rosario?
Aye.
Okay, and it passes.
Are we allowed a little applause? Thank you, staff, so much.
It's good to have some good news about Pleasanton Ridge these days with the recent events. Next, we have item number 3, Finance and Management Services Division. Authorization to award contract to Arts Construction Company Incorporated for the Richard C. Trudeau Conference Center solar project and replacing solar panels project at Peralta Oaks.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jeff Rasmussen, Assistant Finance Officer, here to present on this topic. So I will start work by starting to share my screen. Can everyone see my screen okay?
Yes.
Thank you. So I'm here today to request authorization of construction contract for the Richard C. Trudeau Conference Center solar project and replacing the solar panel project at Peralta Oaks Administration Building. As I begin, remind the board that this is part of the district's climate policy framework for managing resource in all this climate change. And what we strive for is really environmental sustainability in our operations and our designs. Just for the board here, here's a picture of the Vasco Caves residence. It's fully off the grid and solar powered, and we are in the process of replacing the trailer there with a brand new stick-built residence home. So starting with the Trudeau Center, this project was originally slated to be a diesel generator, which is necessary for responding to planned and unplanned outages, high winds, fire danger, all these public safety shutoffs that PG&E is doing. But in working with the electrical engineers on this project, there was a real opportunity to move away from diesel and go to more sustainable solar panel array and a battery backup system. And the best thing about this is during the daylight and the heat of summer, as long as the solar panels are working, this power supply is infinite. There's no generator necessary to even maintain or refill with diesel and the like. And then the batteries are used for overnight or during the winter time when power isn't continuously available. But this should be a very sustainable and reliable system. So the Trudeau system is a relatively small system, 77,000 kilowatt hours. It'll produce about $5,400 per year in energy savings for the Park District. We do need to change the name of the project though from install generator to we're calling it now install backup power related to that. Also included in the agreement is a 1 year of maintenance and cleaning agreement as part of the contract. And you can see down here marked in blue, we're going to cover about half the roof with solar panels on the front side. Will be covered with new solar panels. The battery's not shown here. They'll be out back near all the HVAC equipment. Kind of not related to this exact contract, but before we begin this project, we'll replace the roof on Trudeau. Doesn't look in terribly bad shape, but it is time for it to be replaced, and certainly don't want to do it after all the solar panels have been installed. The next project is replacing the solar panels at Peralta Oaks Administration Building. We have panels on Peralta Oaks. They were installed in 2002. But in 2013, they began to lose their capacity and decline. You can see on the graph on the bottom, if you go all across in 2013, looks like we actually received no power during all of 2013. I can't say what went on there. I wasn't in charge of the system back then. But since that time, all the way until about 2019, the system completely failed. I will point out that we are in the process of replacing the diesel generator at Peralta Oaks. And also during that process, we evaluated moving it to a solar or battery backup system. But our electrical engineers felt the technology just wasn't quite there to support such a large administration building with battery technology at this point. So Peralta Oaks is a much larger system, 665,000 kilowatt hour system. It'll produce about $45,000 per year in savings to the district. But it's only it's only 1/3 of the annual need for Peralta Oaks. And it was always been designed that way, and that was the previous capacity based on the roof size. The remaining 2/3 of the power, though, does come from the Shadow Cliffs panel system, which I'll address in a moment. But also included as part of this contract is a multi-layer roof treatment. We've inspected the roofs. They look in good shape, and particularly the parts under the panels are expected to be even in better shape because they've been shaded out for the last 20 years. But we will install this high-tech roofing maintenance treatment to ensure that we don't have a roof failure during the life of this new solar panel project. And this project also does include a 1-year maintenance service. So just briefly touching on the Shadow Cliffs panel system, came online in March of 2018 and cost $5.5 million. It's a 1.9 megawatt system in over 3,200 solar panels involved. But what's important to remember is that all the power developed at Shadow Cliffs can be distributed to any 50 meters within the Park District. You can go to any 50 meters you want. Now, coincidentally, Peralta Oaks and Trudeau are both on this system. But replacing the panels replacing the Peralta Oaks panels is not an issue for Shadow Cliffs system because we factored that 1/3 power into the Shadow Cliffs design sizing element. The panels existed, and we knew we could get 1/3 of the power from on site. So only 2/3 comes from Shadow Cliffs, as I mentioned before. Trudeau Center is on the Shadow Cliff system, and it will need to be relocated to another meter within the park district. But Trudeau Center is very small; it's only 1%. It can be easily moved to any meter within the park district. So just wanted the board to know, like, what's kind of the meter usage look across the park district. We previously presented this to executive committee, but there are 50 meters total, but these are the top 17, and every other meter that's not shown here is only 1%. These are the largest meters. So you know, 3 or 4, 6 facilities, and then you really get to 3%. It drops off really quick, and then below all this is are only very, very small meters, which again, Trudeau is part of that. So with that, we ask the board to award a construction contract to Arts Construction of Fresno, California for this project, totaling $759,000. And so with that, I will stop sharing and take any questions.
Great. Questions from the board? Mr. Watson.
Well, thanks. I know this is the right thing to do, Jeff, but is there any, has anybody done the math on this? Because if we spent $5.5 million to do Peralta Oaks 20 years ago and it only worked for 13 years, do we get a payback from this? I know it's the right thing to do, but is it worth it? If you have to put a new roof on, what's the new system? How long is it expected to last? Is it a next generation going to be better? And if that's correct, why aren't we doing it at Peralta Oaks North?
A couple things. The cost of the Peralta Oaks project, including the new roof replacement, is $472,000. And as I indicated, the annual payback's $45,000. So simple math, say that's about a 10-year payback, which is great. I believe we are doing and plan to install solar panels on Peralta Oaks South. I don't have all the details on that, but that's my understanding.
Yeah, that was my understanding too, that panels were going to be put on
Peralta Oaks North.
Yeah. Director Lane.
Well, how long do these solar panels last? How long should they last?
That's a good question. Everything I've understood is about 20 years is certainly within range. I would say I'm personally a little disappointed that the panels we had at solar, on Peralta Oaks didn't last any more than that at all. So it's hard, they absolutely should last 20 years. I think that, as Director Wasby said, I think the technology has improved. 20 years ago was a long time and things have certainly improved, but no, I think we can absolutely expect to get 20 years out of all these panel systems.
Hope so.
Great. Any other questions? Great. I, for one, am really happy to see that we're going in this direction. And so, yeah. So we are looking for if there's no other questions, then a motion is in order. Director Echols?
I'll second.
Director Lane? Madam Clerk, a roll call vote.
Yes, President Rosario. Director Wiescott?
Aye.
Director Coffey?
Aye.
Director Wasby?
Aye.
Director Corbett?
Oh,
yeah, that's right. She's left. I'm sorry. Director, I'd be waiting for a while. Director Lane?
Aye.
And Director Echols?
Aye.
And President Rosario?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And then I'm going to go back to our general manager's comments to see if our general manager has any other updates.
Thank you, President Rosario and members of the board. No, I am no other updates. If it's okay, I was going to go ahead and jump to the actions taken by other jurisdictions.
Great.
Okay. So just two quick updates for you in the packet. One was that the city of Alameda, their city council on July 6th, went ahead and approved the demolition of the 2 main buildings and the 4 accessory buildings on the 3.65 acre parcel located at 620 Central Avenue. As you know, that's adjacent to the former GSA property at Crown Beach near Crab Cove. So that was good news that they upheld that decision. And the second one, which I am sure some of you saw in the news, last week on July 13th, the Contra Costa County Board of Supervisors held a public hearing on the Tassajara Parks residential project. And in that meeting, the board certified the EIR. They authorized the staff to execute a preservation agreement between the county, the city of San Ramon, and the East Bay Regional Park District. Authorized amending the general plan to change the urban limit line in land use to include the project's 30-acre single-family residential and parks designations. And the project will convey over 700 acres of open space to the park district and construct a staging area, increasing access to the Tassajara Creek Trail, in addition to providing additional recreation trails, easements, and other improvements. So that was quite newsworthy last week. And I know Director Lane spoke at the meeting on behalf of the project, and it passed, I believe, by a vote of 4-1 with the Board of Supervisors. And that's the end of my report.
Great, thank you. And with that, we are close to the end here.
Oh.
Board and committee reports. Anything else from the legislative committee?
We've already taken action on most of the items we've discussed. We're fast moving, aren't we, Dave?
Yes, well done. Any announcements from closed session?
President Rosario, Carol Victor, District Council, there are no announcements from closed session.
Great, thank you. And now board comments. I will start with the director to my left, Director Waspy, and then Director Eccles.
Great, thank you. So on July 8th, I attended the Hayward Area Shoreline Planning Agency meeting. It was an interesting meeting. We're trying to invite new members to join HASPA. We've got a $500,000 master plan that we put into place and a $1 billion price tag on protecting against sea level rise on our short little stretch of the San Francisco Bay. So we're trying to get new members, and that's well, it's an interesting process. We've extended our agreement to continue to be a JPA for 6 months, and we're going to reevaluate that later. On July 9th, I attended the board workshop, learned a lot about land and all the great things we did. I always loved the workshops. On July 12th, I attended the Alameda County Special Districts Association meeting. Great presentation by a gentleman named Blake Simmons, who works for Lawrence Berkeley Lab. And this guy is a genius who lost me in about the first 3 sentences. This guy is, well, what's he doing? He's turning water to wine is what he's doing in his field. He takes plant material and creates energy from it. And everybody can do that. That's not new technology, but he's got a method, and his team from around the world are doing it so it's economically feasible. It makes sense. And he's looking for plant material. So after the meeting, I did say, he's gotten a grant from CAL FIRE. They're obviously worried about all standing dead trees and trees that fires destroy, yet they're still standing in place. So he's got a grant from CAL FIRE to create some energy up in Placer County. And I said, you know, and he needs publicity, he needs exposure to this program. And I said, hey, listen, I think the Regional Park District could provide the feeder stock for you, meaning the Oakland Berkeley fuels that we've got all of our dying eucalyptus and other tree mortality victims. And he's right there in Berkeley, and this is where all the media would be. So he was very interested in pursuing that with us. So hopefully we can talk to him about that. That'd be a lot of fun. On July 14th, I met with a president of the Lakeland Village Homeowners Association, which is right above Don Castro. He's got many concerns, like everybody does, about fire protection and pre-fire mitigation in his backyard and our Don Castro property. On the 16th, I attended a Alameda Creek cleanup, which was hosted by David Haubert. Supervisor David Haubert at Niles Staging Area. We did a lot of cleanup. It was really a great event. Lots of different representatives were there from different agencies, but there were also three wonderful people, retirees from East Bay Regional Park District who just came, and Britt Thorsness, Julie Hazelton, and Mike Avalos, who came just to volunteer and see some old people from the park. So it was a great event. And boy, there's a lot of garbage out there and a lot of issues. I guess I'll finish. That was it for me. But I'd finish by saying I'd like to congratulate our whole public safety department and park staff, operations staff. It's my understanding last week we've had a drowning at Lake Del Valle, a lost hiker at Pleasanton Ridge, and a 100-acre fire at Vasco Caves. And all of our staff on scene doing what they do really well. So thank you very much.
Hey, thank you, Dennis. Director Echols.
Yeah, thank you. So on the 7th of July, I met with our staff on Point Malate, and on the 8th, I attended a meeting of the Point Malate Working Group with numerous outside stakeholders. On the 9th, I attended the Land Acquisition Board Workshop. And on the 12th, attended the joint Contra Costa Special Districts and Alameda Special Districts Association meetings that you just heard about from Dennis. And likewise, I found the well, actually, there were a couple of good presentations, but the one by Dr. Simmons was particularly interesting and particularly relevant. So, and appreciate Dennis going out of the way to sort of put that presentation together with what, with what we potentially what we could use right here in the Park District. So thank you for that. And then on the 14th, had another meeting with the Point Malate Working Group. And I similarly would like to close by thanking our public safety staff and also thanking the weather for not generating dry lightning, dry thunderstorms this past weekend. I was sort of on pins and needles thinking about last year. So glad that didn't happen this weekend, and appreciate all of the preparedness going forward for the rest of the long fire season. So thank you.
Thank you. And Director Lane and Director Coffey, and then Director Wieskamp.
Thank you. Yes. Since our last board meeting, we had the land workshop, which I always find very interesting. And I've been out in just a few local parks, Iron Horse Trail, Las Trampas, and Briones. For at least short walks, I'm walking more. And then indeed on the 13th of July, I participated in the Tassajara Parks meeting at the Board of Supervisors. And I do want to say they just plowed through it. And about 12:30 or 2:30 or 3 o'clock, they ended, they had the vote, and then they took lunch. So I want to congratulate them on their ability to make it through a long meeting like that. And it was an interesting meeting. One of the things that Supervisor Joya said I thought was very helpful, because there were questions about East Bay Mudwater and the Tassajara Parks project, which is of course 125 dwelling units. And the point that opponents were making was there was no water guaranteed at this point. And Joya said, well, no one else seems to remember, but we approved the Doherty Valley 10,000 dwelling units without a guaranteed water server. And so I thought that pretty much answered that question very nicely. And clearly, 4 members of the board were ready to vote for it, and they made the effort to ask some additional questions to about habitat to both Bob Doyle and Seth Adams, who spoke in favor of the parks project. Then last Saturday, I, along with a couple of other of you from the board, had the chance to go to the Port Chicago Memorial event, which is on Carquinez Strait. And once again, a windy day, but it was a very interesting, successful event, I think, and particularly appreciated Kelly English's account of the Port Chicago explosion. And our staff was there with information about Thurgood Marshall Park and some of the initial writing that they're putting together on it, as well as some boards to talk about the park. So I thought it was a very interesting event. Then I have been talking to people on the Concord Council, really to say how important the master developer is to the Park District, because they are going to be our partner in many aspects. And so we hope that as the council makes their decision on it, they keep in mind how important it is that we be seen as one of their partners in this, because there's a whole stack of reasons why we need to work successfully with that developer. I also had a conversation with Jerry Kent, who many of you would remember as a former operations lead for us, who is putting together a history of the district and Native peoples relations as only he can remember them. And so I think that's going to be very interesting when he finally feels like it's complete and he can put it in our archives. Then I want to congratulate Dennis and Sean on appearing at Doug McConnell's Back Roads talking about the Bay Ridge Trail. I thought they did a very nice job, and I think the Bay Trail people are going to celebrate the 400th mile there at the edge of Garin as we go down to Niles. Garin, yes. Okay, because I always confuse Garin and Garms. I got Garin right. Okay, and then I had one other note here that I cannot make out any sense out of. So thank you for the opportunity to share what happened in Ward 6.
Great. Director Coffey.
All right. I'm very happy to hear that Jerry's working on that history. I enjoy all the histories he does, and I keep them in their own file behind me. It's always very instructive to study the history of this district. On the 7th, I met with our planning staff along with Director Eccles on a Point Malate update. On the 8th, I attended as the featured speaker of the Martinez Kiwanis Club, which is an interesting group full of strong supporters of the parks that surround Martinez. I also attended with Director Eccles the stakeholder Point Malate working group meeting. On the 9th, I attended the land workshop. On the 12th, I also attended the Contra Costa Alameda County Joint Special District Association meeting. On the 13th, I attended the board executive committee meeting. On the 14th, I attended the quarterly meeting of the Contra Costa Watershed Forum. And they have particularly good speakers this time around. Another meeting of the Point Malate working group was on the 14th. On the 15th, I attended a web presentation by Save Mount Diablo and the Sierra Club on the implementation at the federal and state and local level of the 30 by 30 concept and policy. On the 15th, I attended a Black Diamond Mines Naturalist Program, a series that they're calling Stories from Port Chicago. Very well done program. On the 17th, as Director Lane mentioned, I also attended the Port Chicago Memorial commemoration of the 77th anniversary of the disaster on a beautiful morning out there on Suisun Bay. The usual President Rosario meeting planning took place yesterday, and I also attended that. That does it for me, Dee. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Wieskamp.
Okay, on July 8th, I attended LAFCO meeting. And then on the 9th, of course, the land workshop, always good. You feel much better informed when you're done. And the Alameda County Contra Costa joint meeting, I thought was especially good. They had about 45 minutes where we met in various rooms, mixing people from both counties so we could have a little dialogue and discuss ideas and thoughts. I thought that was good. And then, of course, we got the, what has already been discussed by Dennis, particularly the idea of an alternative fuel that's being developed by the gentleman from Berkeley. And I think that we ought to be proactive about that. We've got the fuel. Let's see if we can't get something done here. Maybe they need more funding, and we're pretty good at gathering funding. So maybe we could work out a cooperative arrangement. It would be certainly worth our while. On the 14th, I had a one-on-one with Sabrina. It's always interesting to get to know our general manager more. And on the same date, I had that update for my favorite new project, Tyler Ranch, with Toby and Lisa. And I had a chance to talk to Wayne at Pleasanton Ridge. I talked a couple of times. The hiker has still not been found, anything at all to say that he was there other than the car. And he mentioned that Castle Ridge has been one of the most popular places for people to go up and see the ridge. And then we had a little dialogue about bootleg trails. Maybe we need to talk about that again with staff and see if they've got any ideas how to stop it from happening, because it's very frustrating for the staff to have to keep trying to recoup and redo it. And I'm sure Dee and Dennis have more strong feelings about it than I do, but it is distressing what people are doing. So if anybody has any ideas, it's worth trying to figure out what we can do about these people who choose to do it. That's it.
Great, thank you. Yes, Director Waspy and I definitely have some strong feelings about that.
I was safe in that comment, I knew.
Did I miss anybody else? Director Corbett is had to leave, so it's my turn. Oops, and I just dropped my phone. Okay, so on July 7th, I did an interview with the Oakland Fire Safe Council regarding my role in the 1991 Hills Fire. And then on July 8th, I testified in front of the Senate Resources Committee on behalf of Tesla. And then on the 9th, attended the workshop. Very well done. And great discussion there. Hopefully we'll get to continue that. And then also had on that evening, Director Corbett and I met as an ad hoc committee for the board operating guidelines. You should be seeing something soon on that. And then on the 10th, I attended the Martin Luther King Leadership Academy meet and greet. What a great program. These people from the community of West Oakland, they have these great leaders, and they are touring the entire the entire shoreline, and they're going to come up with a plan of their own, or plans of their own, and what they'd like to see along the shoreline and the estuary there. So they've got great leaders that are architects and engineers, and I was glad to see that our staff was there as well. They got a really nice tour there of the bridge yard and Judge John Sutter, and they had a lot to say about wanting to advocate for opening up the rest of that park. And then on the 13th, I attended the executive board meeting, and then on the 14th, I attended the Alameda County Mayor's Conference, and the mayors there endorsed the campaign against hate. And there was a really good presentation by the Muwekma and Verona band, who are seeking a federal designation. And then on the 15th, I attended a webinar that was put on by the Oakland Heritage Alliance. And that was our very own Brenda Montano and Dave Zuckerman. Recent retiree gave the history of Austin Dunn, and that they gave to the Natural Cultural Resources community. So it was very nice to see. And then on the 17th, attended the Port Chicago commemoration. Very, very well done. I can't say enough about the national parks and our staff and the military. They did a fabulous job there. And then on the 19th, yesterday, I had my board meeting and with Sabrina and her executive team. And so that's it for me. And then any other comments before we adjourn? I would just like to recognize number one, that the effort that went into the search for Philip Kraychek at Pleasanton Ridge. It's very, very sad. The hundreds and hundreds of volunteers and the staffs from Alameda County and the regional parks for their efforts there. It's extremely difficult terrain, and I'm just hoping. I'd like to offer our condolences as a board to the family of Philip Kraychek's family, hoping for the best and find some closure. And then also I'd like to acknowledge that Steve Bobzian retired. I just learned, and wow, there's going to be some big shoes to fill there. Not only was he a biologist, but the work he did on permits was amazing. And then also wanted to give a shout out to Heather DeQuincy, who left us to join the Pleasanton Police Department. So, and then wish her success there. And then last but not least, I would like to acknowledge that it is Latina Heritage Week, and the National Park Service is having a great celebration this week. And I think it's great to acknowledge our roots, and the second layer of, especially in California here, with the advent of the De Anza expedition and the colonization by the Spaniards after. So rich history here in California. So with that, we are up. Director Coffey.
Real quick, I forgot to say something I wanted to say, and I wanted to thank Director Lane for speaking on behalf of all of us on the board at the commemoration out at the 77th anniversary. Director Lane spoke eloquently, and her remarks were very well received. Thank you, Beverly.
I agree. That was a very good speech. Well done. Very well done. So not seeing anything else, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you, everyone. Well done.
Congratulations to everyone.
Goodbye. Thank you.